welcome back to Real Talk, The Road to Tomorrow. I'm Rutvika.
And I'm Tamoghna, and today we're joined by someone who's combining science, writing, and entrepreneurship in really inspiring ways.
Siya Patel is an incoming Harvard freshman, passionate about bioengineering and science communication. And welcome. Thank you so much for joining. And to start off, we saw that you were involved in so many activities from like NeuroNuggets to cross country and even building a hybrid wind turbine. Could you share a bit more about yourself and what like were some of your other passions?
Oh yeah, sure. Um, so fun fact, I always start off about me. I have a tagline. Since my name is Siya, I always tell everyone that I'm like, "Hi, my name is Siya, like see ya later." And I actually talked about that in one of my Harvard essays, and it was my favorite essay I've ever wrote. But another fun fact about me is that I'm a triplet. I have two other brothers, and we do quite similar stuff when it comes to engineering. We're all like very much into the STEM field. Um, Outside of the projects that I've done, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. While I do like science, I like creating things and then expanding on them. So on the side, I also do art. You can see I have some art up there that I've made, and I make that and I just sell it on Facebook Marketplace. So that's a little about me. I'm an entrepreneur at heart.
That's really cool.
Mhm. What inspired you to start NeuroNuggets, and what was your goal?
Um, so originally NeuroNuggets was a personal project, and I hadn't named it NeuroNuggets at first. Um, Around the beginning of 2024, I realized there were a lot of science opportunities in my district or in my area. So, and I also found myself talking about science a lot, but like nobody was listening or they didn't really know what I was talking about. So I started reading, I mean, I was always reading these research papers, but then I started writing about them personally on my own personal Medium account and posting articles in a way where like other people can understand the science and they're actually like they feel curious about it. I talked about it in a way where it's not confusing and I really broke down the terms. Um, and then after a while I was publishing. I didn't get a lot of readers at first, but I kept working, I kept posting, and then more people started reading it. So I was like, oh, this is growing. I need to post more articles because right now I'm publishing once or twice a month and it's not enough. So that's when I started bringing on new people and I was like, I can make this into a whole opportunity. There's so many other kids out there who want to be able to write their own stuff and get published, but they're not able to. So that's when I decided, I think it was around March. It was in March when I decided, you know what? Science writing helped me get into college, so I'm going to extend this opportunity to other people. And I turned it into NeuroNuggets. I made my own website, created a publishing platform, and then I marketed it on LinkedIn. And I was just like, hey, if you're interested, you can join. And now it's open to everybody. And we have a little over 206 writers with us, so that's amazing.
Mhm. That's really cool. Was there a movement in your life like you realized you wanted to pursue bioengineering?
Um, Bioengineering was very recent, actually. So I did a program called Might Semester in the summer before my senior year. And before that, I knew I was interested in biology. I knew I was interested in regenerative medicine, but I didn't know bioengineering existed. So I was more going to go into pre-med. I was going to be a medical person and then do some research, but I thought I was going to be a doctor. And then during my semester, I was introduced to a major called bioengineering, biomedical engineering, and I realized that there actually is a field, there is a career out there for people who like STEM but don't want to be a doctor. So it was quite recent when I realized that.
hmm And now let's talk about the part everyone's curious about, Harvard. Getting into Harvard is a huge achievement, and so many people dream about it. Can you start by sharing what inspired you to apply to Harvard?
Um, it's actually a funny story. I wasn't gonna apply to Harvard. I Originally my dream school was MIT and I focused a lot on my MIT essays. I spent months on my MIT essays and then a few days before Harvard application was due, everyone was applying as a joke because they're like, oh, like it's Harvard, no one can get in. We'll just apply as a joke. So I was like, yeah, I'll apply as a joke as well. So, and then I thought, since I like writing so much, I decided to write completely new essays for the Harvard essay. So I rewrote my whole Common App essay for fun for Harvard. And then honestly, I just kind of I wrote without that pressure of needing to get in, and I guess it worked. And I submitted those and I was like, you know what? This is my fun creative writing. I enjoyed it. I didn't overstress. I didn't over edit it. I submitted those and it worked out. So,
Mm-hmm. That's really cool.
Yeah. For the students listening, what do you think Harvard looks for in an applicant, just like beyond good grades and test scores?
honestly, I think this is the most important thing, and this is what I've been trying to tell everybody. My test scores put me in the bottom 25% at Harvard. I have a 34 on my ACT. And it's good, but it's not like 36, right? So don't count yourself out regarding your grades, or you don't have a 4.0 GPA, that is okay. Or you haven't taken the hardest courses, that is okay. You want to show your story through your essays, and I think what they really look for is critical thinking. You want, because I think there's a difference between intellect and smartness. You can be good at school, but what Harvard is looking for is intellect. So you need to show intellect through your initiatives and the things you do. I haven't done any cool programs or projects. I have no amazing titles to my name. I'm the president of one chapter. But I think what really sets my application apart is starting my own thing. So starting NeuroNuggets, publishing my own writing on my own because there was no other opportunity for me, building my own vertical axis wind turbine because there were no mentors around me. So they look for people who take the resources around them and make the most of it. Don't think that you have to overpad your resume. It's really about what are your goals and how are you spending every second of your day chasing those goals.
Mhm. And you said you wrote your essays especially for Harvard. If you're okay with sharing, what did you what did you choose to write your personal statement about? And how did you connect it to your passions?
So originally I come from a very like strict background. So I started off with my strict background in my family and how like in my culture, the specific gender roles and how they can be very limiting on my career and how like normally it's pushed that you don't take a higher education course or like you shouldn't be overeducated. So that was very looked down upon on women and just like gender roles, career roles, that was very restricting on me. So that's what I talked about in the beginning, how I thought that to appeal to the people in my culture, I should stick to these specific gender roles and how that was limiting me in the beginning. And then I started talking about how I pushed myself to look beyond the roles and expectations that were kept of me. And just because I was expected to be something. I didn't have to be that something. Um, so especially like I talked about my freshman and sophomore year and how I was very quiet. I didn't really go out of my way. I didn't take a lot of initiative. And then something clicked junior year where I was like, I really want to be someone. And I want to do something. And I talked about how I started taking my own initiative, regardless of the fact that I had a slower start than everyone else.
Mhm.
How did you highlight your portfolio for like NeuroNuggets and your science research projects in your application? Did you submit a portfolio or supplemental materials?
Um, yes and no. So I don't think, maybe I'm mistaken because I did submit my Harvard application quickly, but I never submitted any sort of portfolio to Harvard. Instead, you have a 1 hour long interview. Sometimes these interviews go longer. So I knew that a portfolio would not properly show what I'd done. So I talked about my projects a lot during my interviews, but on the Common App, it lets you like list activities. And I made sure that like NeuroNuggets was one of my top activities and the vertical axis wind turbine project was one of my top activities. But then also there's 5 supplemental essays. So I briefly elaborated about um those projects that I did. So that way when I get interviewed, I like know when to bring it up. The interview is very important because I brought my projects with me and I brought all the files, I brought all the CAD models, I had my phone so I could show my interviewer the pictures. And so that way she can get like an in-depth idea of like the project and all the work I put in.
Mhm. And like we talked about before, a lot of students worry about not having perfect stats. Can you share if you had any doubts applying and how you overcame them?
Yeah. So my freshman and sophomore year, I mean, I had all A's. but the course load was not very competitive. So freshman year, I took one AP, sophomore year, I took two APs, and usually kids who are applying already have like six APs by then. So what you need to show is, I mean, everybody has a different starting line. If you are watching this video right now, you're listening along, maybe if your starting line was not good, that's okay. You still have so much time to recover, and you need to show that you pivoted because everybody's life story is different. And if you had a rocky start at first, you can still pivot and do so much better your junior and senior year by showing initiative. So freshman year, I took one AP, I took AP Human Geo. And then sophomore year, I took AP Calculus and AP Statistics. And I didn't take all the APs that were offered either. But as long as you're showing initiative in your education and you're explaining yourself, like you should be good.
Mm. You were talking about your interview process before. What do you have any tips for students who were preparing to go to a Harvard interview?
Um, yes, actually, I was telling a few people about this, is I mean, even if you don't get into Harvard, don't be disheartened because there's so many amazing people who apply. And even through the interview process, people come highly prepared, and often it's easy to come across as over-prepared and robotic. They're looking for someone who doesn't always follow the rules and expectations. So don't come in saying the perfect things, saying things that you've memorized. You want to show how your personality is different. The whole point of Harvard accepting a person is so that they use the resources that Harvard is offering. They don't want to see how perfect you are. They want to see the change that you're willing to make, not to yourself, but also to your community. So I just say go in being don't try to come across as robotic or perfect. If you have flaws, if there are things that are not perfect about you, embrace that and tell them that. Like I told my interviewer, I was like, one of my weaknesses is that I'm not a rule follower and I tend to do things on my own. And that's what sets you apart from so many other people. Because Harvard and other amazing schools like MIT and Caltech, they're not looking for people who just go to the class and do good in the class. They're looking for someone who's going to take the material from the class and then how are you applying that? So really try to like show initiative and make sure you have like a few projects that you want to talk about.
Okay, that's really great advice. And how important do you think teacher recommendations and extracurriculars were in your application? And how did you choose to ask for your recommendation letter?
I definitely think that recommendation letters are a make or break. You can talk, because at the end of the day, Harvard does not have the means to verify every single thing you say. So your recommendation letters are a way to verify the things you've said and verify your character. If you want to make sure that you have a close bond with at least two to three teachers so they can speak to your character and they know about the projects you've been doing. So I told my counselors, and I'm sure every school does this, you want to make sure that when you ask a teacher to write your recommendation letter, you send them just like bullet points with stuff on it about what you have done so that they know, like, yeah, I'm going to make sure I talk about NeuroNuggets because I know she's been doing this. I'm going to talk about her science fair projects and the vertical axis wind turbine because I know she's been doing it. That way they can verify like your character and your projects and like the significance of it. But this might be a little specific, but I do think it's good to play a sport so that your coach can write you a recommendation letter. Because I do think I did cross country and I do think sports shows a lot of like discipline and strength, especially like courses at these hard universities, they require so much strength because it's so much work. I do think you should play sport, get close to your coach, and I mean, have strong work ethic so they can write about it.
How many years have you been playing sport?
Um, I've done track and cross country all throughout high school.
Mhm.
I did cross country. I didn't do cross country freshman year because I missed the sign up date. And then I didn't do track senior year because I had college courses after school. But I've always played a sport and I think it looks good that you're a part of like sports and different clubs.
Mhm.
Okay. Looking back, what are the top three things you think helped you in your Harvard application?
That's a good question. Okay, so I know one of them is definitely science writing. I talked about I mean, there's a thing called like victim complex where like you find yourself in a disadvantaged area and then you choose to give up. So I remember talking about that and how I really try to not be a victim complex person. And science writing was my evidence or way of proving that, of talking about how just because there were no science opportunities around me at the time, because my school is very much a football-centered school, I still made sure I went out of my way to like learn and write about science, even though it wasn't a big thing at the school. So I would say that was my big thing, because I also scaled it. Um, and they're always looking for like scale and significance of impact. Along with that, my vertical axis wind turbine project. So I'll just elaborate on that a little bit. I started it last summer, so it's been a year now. And essentially, everybody uses wind energy, except the way that wind energy is being harnessed is not very efficient. So we have these big windmills, except they take up too much space. And as like the cities grow, we need more space, and we can't exactly be giving that space to wind turbines. So that's where different types of wind turbines come in, where instead of spinning like this, and they're really big, they spin like that. And they're a lot smaller. So this research has been more recent. It's been like the last decade. And there's two models on the market. They're called vertical axis wind turbines, but these two models are not very efficient. So what my team and I did is we tested these models, we figured out why they're not efficient, why are they not working? And then we built our own model, putting together different components of the current models, and we tested that. So from the testing, online simulation testing, our model is 35% more power efficient and 25% more cost efficient. And then we've moved through with prototyping it. So 3D printing, trying to find funding so we can one day like build the full prototype and sell it. But I would definitely say that was a very significant piece of my application. And then number three, there was a very specific essay that I wrote, and I think that's what got me in. It was my favorite essay. Harvard has an essay, and I think this is the most important essay you will write for Harvard. They ask you about a disagreement that you've had and how you solved it. So I talked about a disagreement that I had with my dad and how he's from a village back in India. So we have very different ways of thinking. So I just talked about how even though we have a lot of disagreements and we have a different way of thinking, I tried to understand like the underlying measures of why he thinks that way. Um, so I do think you should get an early start on that essay and really try to be well-rounded and nuanced in that essay, because that shows a lot of like your critical thinking that Harvard looks for.
Hmm. And now that you're officially going to Harvard, what are you most excited about?
Definitely like the specific courses. I've been going through the course portal, and you get to see like stuff like stem cell and regenerative biology, like tissue
Hmm.
engineering. And it's all these like specific niche topics that you don't really get to take in high school. Like high school is just AP biology. It's
Hmm.
not stem cells. So that's definitely exciting. You get to do the specific things that you like, and just reading the course description is super fun. And I'm excited for that.
Hmm.
What do you hope to do after Harvard, and how do you see your like time affecting you in the future?
So this was actually another Harvard essay that they ask you to write about how you're going to use your Harvard education. I really want, so the startup I'm doing right now, the Vertex's wind turbine, I think I'm going to pass that off to my brothers because that's not my main passion. I care a lot about stem cells and regenerative medicine. So a lot of people are affected by organ failure, heart attacks. They need a new kidney, they need a new liver, and they can't get these organs readily. For you to get a heart transplant, someone else has to die in a specific way for you to get their heart. And it's a very inefficient process. So something that I've been researching, I haven't ever got to work on it hands-on, but I want to use my experience at Harvard, is to create a startup or work in a lab of any sort where we use stem cells to regenerate these organs. We make the organs in a lab. So instead of waiting on a transplant list, having a 10% chance of ever receiving a heart, and then a 30% chance of rejecting that heart, we can take your own body cells, create a heart made customized for you, and then put that back into your body. And it works. It doesn't work yet, but it will one day. That is my goal. That is my goal project. And I want to see that come alive, hopefully after I'm out of Harvard.
Mhm. And for all the high schoolers listening who are building their resumes and thinking about college, what advice would you give them, especially for those aiming high?
Um, well, I can think of two specific things right now, and they're two very actionable items. So you can watch this, turn off your computer, and go do it right now. So first thing is to build a skill, a universal skill. So oftentimes I tell people there's three universal skills. You want to build at least one of them: coding, writing, and public speaking. So you want to make sure that you are showing a high level of expertise in at least one of them. I chose to do more of like the writing and the public speaking side with NeuroNuggets and DECA. But you want to make sure that you show a peak in one skill and then like have proof to back it up, whether it's like you won these trophies through DECA, or you won this competition, or you won this Hack MIT competition. But work on a specific skill, a universal skill, because that's necessary in every field. And then number two, have any sort of passion project and really develop it. So a mistake I often see on people's resumes, and it's a big red flag. If you say something like, oh, I published 5 research papers, that is not a good thing. Research takes a long time. It's usually like a year-long process, and most times even longer. So you want to show one project that you've put your all into and it reflects your best skills. So whether that's starting a startup like NeuroNuggets, or whether it's building the vertical axis wind turbine, or whether it's building an app, you want to make sure that you have a passion project that shows your skills and shows where you want to be in a career. So those are two actionable items I urge everybody to do, and it's going to give you a great upper hand.
Thank you.
And lastly, if you could give your freshman high school self one piece of advice before starting your Harvard journey, what would it be?
I would just tell myself, try not to fit in too much. It's good that you're different. You want to stand out in a good way. But if you have like niche interests, like I know a guy that just loves sculpture. And if that's your niche interest, like don't change it, because that makes you you and it makes you stand out. So that's the advice I would give.
Mhm. And that's a wrap for our episode today. Sia, thank you so much for being here and walking us through your journey. It was really great hearing your story.
Of course, if you need anything else, I would love to follow up.
Thank you.
All right.
You.
Have a great day.
You
Thank you.
too.